Hey, Keith here from Academy of Bass. Today I'm going to show you how to get started with jazz improvisation, but more importantly, how to improvise over a 2-5-1 chord progression. Of course, experienced improvisers and the masters of jazz improvisation fully understand music harmony. They're conversant with the melodic devices and the rhythms used in the jazz idiom, and by the same token, they've got a very broad command of their instrument. But if you don't fall into that category, it doesn't mean that you can't get started and that you can't enjoy playing improvised solos. So I'm going to show you how to start improvising over a 2-5-1 chord progression, which is a pivotal chord progression that's used in every style of music, and it features really heavily in jazz. For simplicity, I'm going to be working in the key of C. The 2 chord is D minor 7 because it's built on the 2nd degree of the C major scale. The 5 chord is G7 because that's built on the 5th degree of the scale. And then finally the 1 chord, or the root or tonic chord, is C major 7. We're going to be playing the D minor 7 for 1 bar and also the G7 chord for 1 bar. That's going to be followed by C major 7, which is going to be played for 2 bars. So let's look at the chords. Just before I do get into this, there's a completely free PDF for the lesson. It's packed full of fingerboard diagrams, notation, both standard notation and tab, and it's also got a bunch of different exercises that you can use to help develop your improvising. I'll also include the backing tracks that I'm going to be using in the lesson as part of that download too, so I'll post a link to that below. Make sure you grab a copy. Let me know in the comments too if you're enjoying the lesson. It's always nice to get positive feedback. And as a blatant plug, don't forget to like the video and also support the channel by subscribing if you're enjoying the lesson, that is. So the first chord, D minor 7, D, F, A and C. Now the structure or formula for a minor 7 chord is root, flattened 3rd, 5th and flattened 7th. G7, G, B, D and F. Now the structure of a 7 chord is root, 3rd, 5th and flattened 7th. And then finally C major 7, C, E, G, B, or root, 3rd, 5th and major 7. Now you can play these chord arpeggios in lots of different ways. The more variations you know and the more fluently you can play them, the better. And if you can learn the names of the notes in the chord, that will only benefit you. Now, if this sounds like a lot, don't worry, because I'm going to show you some really easy ways of how to navigate all of this. I'm going to start with an improvisational device called common tones or common notes. All that means is I'm going to find one note that belongs to 2 chords, because that means that we don't have to change what we're playing when the chords change, and that means that what we're playing is going to be easy to play, but it also means that it's going to fit, it's going to work well, and it's going to sound really good too. So I'm going to start by playing D here. Now D's the root note of D minor 7. When we change to G7, I'm going to stay with this D because D is the 5th of G7. And then we move to C major 7. All I'm doing now is looking to the closest note to this D that's in the C major 7 chord. Well, the obvious choice is to move down to this C, which is the root note of C major 7. But we could also, from the D, move up 2 frets to E, which is the 3rd of C too. So I'm moving to C, the root note of C major 7 here. And again. Now I'm going to move up to E, the 3rd. Sounds nice. And again. And we could juice it up by adding a bit of rhythm. That works too. And again, going up to E. So the best thing about this technique, apart from the fact that it sounds really good, is we're not actually doing any work. The chords or the musicians that we're playing with are doing all the work. We're playing one note staying put, and as the chords change, they make what we're playing sound really good. So let's try some different notes. We played D, the root note. What about F, the flattened third of D minor 7? So I'm playing that up here at the 10th fret of the G string. And when the chord changes to G7, this F becomes the flattened 7th of G7. So we've got the F on top of D minor 7. We've got the same F there while we play G7, which sounds really nice. And when we move to C major 7, again, all we're looking for is the closest note to us that's in the chord. So from this F, we could move down 1 fret to play E again, which is the 3rd of C. Or as an alternative, from this F, we could move up 2 frets and play G, which is the 5th of C. So let's listen to that now. Sounds really nice when we stay on that F for the G7. We're going to move up to G, the 5th of C major 7. That sounds nice too. Now I'm going to combine the first two ideas back to the D root note to C, the root note of C major 7. Back up to E, the 3rd of C major 7. Hit that F again. And then finally we're going to finish on G, the 5th of C. So now on to the next note. I'm going to play a C, which is the flattened 7th of D minor 7. I'm playing that here at the 10th fret of the D string. When the chord moves to G7, we can't play this C because it's not in the chord. So I'm looking for the nearest note from this C that belongs to a G7 chord. And if we play 1 fret down from this C, we get a B. B's the 3rd of G7. And we could stay there for the C major 7 because B is the major 7 of C major 7. Or we could play C to B and back to C for the C major 7 because that's the root note. And there's another option. We can again start on C, the flattened 7th of D minor 7, move up 1 tone to D, which is the 5th of G7, and then back to C, the root of C major 7. Or we could play C, D, and jump back down here to B, which is the major 7 of C major 7. And there's one more variation, and it's this: C, the flattened 7th of D minor 7, move up 1 tone to D, the 5th of G7, and then move up another tone to E, which is the 3rd of C major 7. And these are just a few variations of the possible options. The options are infinite, but let's have a quick listen to what they sound like now. So we've got C, B the 3rd of G7, and B the major 7 of C major 7 again. This time we're going to return to C. C, B, and C, the root note of C major 7. That's nice. Now we're changing, so we've got C up to D, the 5th of G7, back to C, the root of C major 7. Again. Now we're going to change that last note to B, the major 7 of C major 7, and finally C up to D, the 5th of G7, up to E, the 3rd of C major 7. And now for the last of the single chord tone options. This time I'm going to be playing A, which is the 5th of the D minor 7 chord. I'm going to be playing this at the 14th fret of the G string. So I'm playing this A here, and for the G7 chord I'm going to move down 2 frets and play G here at the 12th fret. That's of course the root note of the G7 chord. And if we stay there, that becomes the 5th of the C major 7 chord. A to G to G. We can also play A up to B, which is 2 frets or a tone higher, which is the 3rd of G7, and we can stay there because that B is the major 7 of C major 7, and we can chop and change though, so we could play A, the 5th of D minor 7, B, the 3rd of G7, and then jump down to G, which is the 5th of C major 7, and we can also do this: A, the 5th of D minor 7, to B, the 3rd of G7, and if we keep going, we get C, which is the root of C major 7. Starting on A, to G, the root of G, and G, the 5th of C major 7. time. A, up to B, the third of G, and stay on the B because it's the major 7 of C major 7. I'm going to change the last note, so we get A, B, the third of G, down to G, the 5th of C major 7, I like that. I'm going to play it differently. A to G, the root of G7, up to B, the major 7 of C major 7. And one final variation. A, up to B, up to C, the root of C major 7. I'm going to mix a few of these lines up. Everything I've looked at so far uses a common tone, which is one note that fits over two chords, and that's a great starting point. But what I'm going to do now is look at using two notes over each chord. Now, this is such a big subject, I could spend all day on this because the options really are infinite, but I'm going to look at a couple of options just to give us a head start and to help you start playing some ideas. So I'm going to pick two notes at random that are going to fit over this D minor 7 chord. So I'm going to play C, the flattened 7th. I'm going to play that here at the 5th fret of the G string, and then I'm going to play A, which is the 5th. I'm going to play that here at the 7th fret of the D string. So we've got C to A. Over the G7, I'm going to move up and I'm going to play D, which is the 5th of G7. I'm at the 7th fret of the G string, and then I'm going to play B, which is the 3rd of G7. So if you like, we've got this movable shape. And then finally over the C major 7, we've got a couple of options. We're going to play E here at the 9th fret of the G string and then move down to C. So E's the 3rd of C major 7, C's obviously the root. I'm here at the 10th fret of the D string. Now, instead of playing this C, I could also play the B, which is the major 7. So let's have a listen to that. C to A, D to B, and E to C, the root note of C major 7. I'm going to change that last note. E to B, the major 7 of C major 7. I'm going to flip the line around now. A to C, B to D, C to E. I'm going to use the B, major 7 to 3rd there. So that was just one of many options for using two notes for every chord. By the way, if you do grab a copy of the free PDF for the lesson, it's got a bunch of different exercises using different two-note combinations for every chord, so do make sure you grab a copy of that. I'm going to finish off by looking at a different two-note concept, and this time I'm going to do some string crossing, and I'm going to start off with D, which is the root note of D minor 7, here at the 7th fret of the G string, and then I'm going to jump down and play F, the flattened 3rd, at the 8th fret of the A string. Now, with this approach, I'm bucking the trend a little bit because I'm not looking so much for notes that are nearby. So to get the most out of this, you've got to think about the notes in the chord. So as I say, we've got D and F. For the G7, I'm going to jump up an octave from this F and play F here at the 10th fret of the G string. Now F is the flattened 7th of G7. From there I'm going to jump down to B, the 3rd of G7. So here I'm at the 9th fret of the D string. And over the C major 7 chord, I'm going to play E here at the 9th fret of the G string, that's the 3rd, and then I'm going to jump down to G, the 5th, at the 10th fret of the A string. And this is what it sounds like. D to F, F to B, E to G. I'm going to play those lines in reverse. And again. I'm going to combine it with the previous idea. So there are lots of great ideas there to get you started and get you improvising. I hope you agree with me that they all sound really good. Now this is a 2-part lesson. The second part of this lesson is going to be released very soon, so keep an eye out for that. I really do hope you've enjoyed this lesson. If you have, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to grab that free PDF because it's got loads of great stuff in it. That link is posted below. If you've enjoyed the lesson, give things a thumbs up, support the channel by subscribing. Thanks for joining me. Look forward to seeing you next time, and in the meantime, happy practicing.